Welcome to planning your trip to Switzerland. I'm sure you're excited and ready to get started. So I've put together this presentation to help make things easier and smoother. So let's jump right in. Right, the first thing we're going to cover in this presentation are the best time to visit Switzerland, or the best times, because there's a few different ones. I know a lot of you are often wondering what's the best season, so we're going to jump right into that in a minute. Also the top destinations, some of the best spots to visit if you're visiting for the first time, or perhaps some spots you've not covered during your first visit and you're back for a second time, then congratulations. I'm also going to go over some popular activities and things you might want to slot into your itinerary, some hotspots, some things people typically do and enjoy while they're in Switzerland. A lot of my clients and readers love this kind of stuff. I'm also going to jump into choosing the right transportation, because there's often a debate between car and train, because Switzerland is a train country. And of course, we're also going to look at train passes, which is a big question I always get in my Facebook group and by email, and also let you know what the next steps are to help you have a great trip to Switzerland. So who am I? You might be wondering, and I'll show you my face in a second, but here's a picture of me. My name is Ashley. I'm an Australian, been in Switzerland for 23 years. I now have Swiss citizenship. I also have Australian citizenship, of course. I've travelled the whole world, but I've also travelled the whole country by train, car and boat. I've hiked, mountain biked and paddleboarded everywhere. I know the country like the back of my hand. Spent a lot of time travelling around in Switzerland over the years, and I've seen almost every corner. I've since become a qualified Swiss travel and train expert from the Swiss Tourism Board and the Swiss Train Company. I also have a lot of experience planning my own trips over the years, but also helping people like you plan awesome trips to Switzerland. And of course, last but not least, you might be confused. Yes, Ashley is or was a guy's name when I was born in Australia. And if you've seen Gone with the Wind, there was an Ashley in there as well. And it's since gone on to become more of a woman's name. So people are often confused and think that I'm a woman if they don't see my face. So I just thought I'd get that out of the way. So here I am at home in Switzerland. I live in Zug, actually, not too far from Lucerne. And I just wanted to present myself here. And here's my favorite map of Switzerland in 3D above me. And I'll be presenting from here, and I'll jump back into the presentation now. So you might be wondering what I can actually do for you. And of course, I'll jump into this a little bit after the presentation, but in case you're wondering how I can help you, if you have other questions, I have a website full of information called switzerlanding.com, which is just Switzerland with an ing on the end. And there's hundreds and hundreds of blog posts on there. I also have a Facebook group and a Facebook page with lots of information that I share. I have a small YouTube channel with lots of really cool core videos on train travel and the top destinations in Switzerland. I also have a bunch of travel guides which really help my clients and potentially you get your planning done faster and easier by showing you all the highlights and places to stay in popular regions like Interlaken, Lucerne. I also have some train guides and some budget guides that go with those as well as itinerary guides. And I also do one-on-one travel consulting and itinerary planning for people, as well as train pass selection and putting you in touch with travel agents if that's something that you need. So moving on to the actual presentation, the best time to visit Switzerland. If you're not already coming in summer, which is the peak season, that is always the best time to visit Switzerland because the snow has melted, everything is open, it's up and running, the weather is usually great, and it's just an awesome time to see Switzerland. Of course, there is a small downside to that, which is that it's extremely popular, it's busy, and it's one of the most expensive times in terms of hotels and activities. Places raise their prices during peak season, but you're getting the best of the weather and of Switzerland during that time. One of my favourite times to travel is in the shoulder season. Of course, I have the opportunity to travel outside of the peak because I live here, and I typically go a lot in June and September, October. Just to give you an idea of a few positives and negatives of these periods, May to June is a little bit problematic because the snow has not melted, so some of the higher hikes may not be open. So just keep that in mind. The earlier you come, the more snow there may be still around. So you can have some issues with that. Of course, the weather is improving slowly as you come into sort of June, late June, and as you get towards July. So the later in June you come, the better, if possible. And then, of course, you've got September, October, two of my favourite months, the best hiking months in Switzerland. All the snow's melted. We don't usually get too many days of snowfall during those months. Things are typically cheaper in the shoulder seasons, and if you get in before the end of October, especially around about the 20th of October, when things start to close down, you get some really awesome days. I spent a whole week in Zermatt, for example, a couple of years ago in October with a friend of mine mountain biking, and the weather was awesome. The scenery was awesome. You have the fall colours, which you can see here in the bottom right. That's Zermatt with the Matterhorn poking out, and you get this awesome golden colour. Of course, it can be a bit iffy, so you're gambling a little bit with the weather, but you get some benefits as well. And then you have winter, which typically runs from December till February, maybe March. And that's when the Swiss typically go skiing. Of course, December, there's usually not enough snow unless you go higher up, like in Zermatt. So usually we start skiing in January and February, but peak season really starts around Christmas and New Year. We get a lot of tourists coming from all over Europe and all around the world to the Swiss ski resorts and the amazing Christmas markets that happen leading up to the 24th. They shut down on the 24th, so just keep that in mind. And then all the way through February, which is also expensive because it's Swiss school holidays. So all the kids go typically with their school or with their parents skiing for a week. So January is a better month than February if you want good snow and not peak season. Early March can also be great, but depending on the season, the snow can start to melt. You can ski into April, especially if you ski higher up, but often the snow's already starting to melt and you're getting kind of a bit of slush skiing, as I like to call it. So the months I would not normally come would be November and maybe April and early May. Because of the weather, it can be really iffy. November is usually a grey and not so happy month in Switzerland. We typically go away then because it's not great and everything's closed, and yeah, it's just not an awesome time to be in Switzerland. So let's cover some of the top destinations you may have heard about. Of course, the number one and most visited region in Switzerland is the Interlaken region. That includes Grindelwald, Lauterbrunnen and Interlaken, and the Jungfraujoch, of course, and the lakes of Brienz and Thun, which sit on either side of the town of Interlaken, which is why it's called Interlaken, means between lakes. And this is an awesome area where there's tons of stuff to do, there's stunning scenery, and you could spend up to a week just in this region. Of course, if you don't have the time, you should reduce that a bit and allow yourself time to see the other regions, which include Lucerne, which is super popular because it's one of the most stunning cities in Switzerland with its historic Old Town and Chapel Bridge. And you also have nearby mountains there like Pilatus, Rigi, Titlis, Bürgenstock and Stoss, which you may have seen on Instagram with the Stoss Ridge Walk. These mountains are also spectacular, not quite as high as around Interlaken, but also worth a couple of days if you can afford the time because you're right on the lake, you've got mountains everywhere. It's an amazing place to stay and you could spend ages there. I can actually see it out my window almost from here. It's stunning. And last but not least, in terms of popularity, is Zermatt, which is a dead-end valley in the very south of Switzerland with some super high 4,000 metre peaks, which translates, I believe, to about 13,000 feet. And the Matterhorn is one of those, and the most famous Toblerone mountain, as they call it. And you can go there and visit the Gornergrat and Matterhorn Glacier Paradise and do some amazing hikes, or just hang out in the car-free town that is an absolute pleasure to spend time in. So of course, that's not everything Switzerland has to offer. There's some other really cool regions, including the Lake Geneva and the Montreux region, which have the wineries behind them. And you can see in the top left here, you have France on the other side of the lake, and you have a beautiful castle there called Chateau Chillon. And some other great areas like Vevey and Rocher-Denay, and a lot of just beautiful towns and areas to hang out in on the lake with mountains in the distance. You can't really beat that. And so that's a thing you can tack on to the end of a Zermatt area or Interlaken area visit and is easily incorporated into your itinerary. Another popular region to visit is the Appenzell region, which is in the northeast of Switzerland, a few hours from Zurich. Some beautiful hiking there, sheer valleys with lakes in the middle and beautiful hikes around and some great gondolas you can go up if you're not so into hiking. And you can easily just spend a day or two out there while you're visiting the region. Of course, you've got all the cities in Switzerland, like Zurich, which you may end up landing in and is worth spending at least a day in. Geneva's also pretty cool. Bern, Basel, beautiful cities, historic cities with old towns in the middle, not like the cities we're used to back home. You can actually hang out in these cities and explore, and it's an absolute pleasure to walk around in them. Switzerland's very walkable and super easy just to chill out in, go to a restaurant, have a coffee, go to a museum, hang out on the river, on the lake. And last but not least is St. Moritz, which is in the far east of Switzerland. It is joined by the Glacier Express, which we'll discuss a little bit later. And this is part of the Engadine region or the Greater Graubünden region, which is one of the cantons of Switzerland. And it's a beautiful high plateau area with some stunning lakes and mountains around. And it's also great to just do some hikes and some exploring for some extra time if you're out and about discovering Switzerland. So these are the main areas I would suggest you explore and consider for your itinerary. Of course, the first three are the most popular, and these ones are something that you can add to more of an extended itinerary depending on what interests you or where you want to go. And you've definitely got lots of amazing options. So, popular activities in Switzerland. Of course, hiking or walking. Don't be put off by the word hiking. There's lots of easy hikes, 1 or 2 hours, that you can do from the top of a gondola, relatively flat, in all of these places. In Lucerne, in Interlaken area, there's multiple hikes you can do as a non-hiker, and they're super easy, not difficult. You don't need hardcore shoes, and you don't need lots of gear. Of course, if you want to go even more hardcore, which is the kind of stuff that I've done over the years, you can do multi-day tracks, staying in mountain huts. You can do 4 to 6 hour hikes between destinations. And another thing people love doing is jumping out on the water. Of course, there's lakes everywhere, and Switzerland has boats. So they're part of the passes that you may have if you have a train pass, and it's just a public ferry system. Some of them are historic paddle steamers like the one pictured on the bottom right here. Stunning boats, beautiful to hang out on, historic, and a pleasure just to cruise the day. You can go on Lake Lucerne as far or as short as you like. You can incorporate it into a visit to a mountain. The same with Lake Brienz and Lake Thun. There's tons of activities around these lakes. Lake Zurich, of course, you can do a short trip, maybe to the Lindt Museum. And in Lake Geneva, you can just hop between the towns, between Vevey and Montreux and Lausanne. And it's just great to get out on the water and experience that because it's part of Switzerland. Switzerland has amazing lakes. But of course, nothing is quite like getting a bit of adrenaline while you're in Switzerland, and it's not for everybody, but you could go paragliding. A lot of people love that. Just jump off a cliff like in Lauterbrunnen, and it's a once-in-a-lifetime experience, super safe, and great to get out and enjoy the Alps from an absolutely different perspective. Another thing people love doing is canyoning, a little bit more risky and for the young at heart or the young in body because it's actually quite hard. You have lots of other things like mountain biking and winter sports, of course, skiing, tobogganing, snowshoeing, winter walking. Another great thing you can do is a helicopter ride if you can afford it. I did one in Zermatt, all around the Alps and around the top of the Matterhorn, which is absolutely insane. Costs $200 or $300, but it's something you will never forget. So you can plan all of these kinds of things into your itinerary, or it's something I can help you do, of course. I know all the things to do in all these places, and you can make sure that every day is full of amazing things to do while you're visiting Switzerland. You can get a boat ride in there, you can get a few hikes in, an adrenaline activity, all the different locations, and you can tick off all those things in one amazing trip to Switzerland. And another thing you should do, and you can even do small versions or big versions of, is a train journey, a panoramic train journey. Just kick back and enjoy the stunning scenery from the seat in the train, which is super comfortable, not that expensive. I mean, it's certainly not cheap compared to going to Mexico for a holiday, but in terms of versus a car, it is not as expensive as people think. And for us, it's our way of getting around the country. For 12 years when I lived here, the first half of my time in Switzerland, I didn't even have a car. And I saw the whole country with bus and with boat and with train. It's so easy to do. You don't have to worry about it. Trains go everywhere and they're always on time. And even if you miss a connection, you get the next one. And they're super scenic. Even just going from Lucerne to Interlaken, which is a typical ride you do, or from Zurich to Lucerne, it's stunning scenery everywhere. So even if you don't plan a panoramic ride, which are specific trains where you have to book seats, you can just jump on a normal regional train and enjoy the scenery. There's so many options, from the Glacier Express, which runs from Zermatt all the way across in the east to St. Moritz, and you can connect that up with the Bernina Express and then back with the Gotthard Express. There's tons and tons of options. And it's something I absolutely recommend you at least do 1 or 2 short trips while you're here in Switzerland, because it's part of Switzerland. Trains in Switzerland are part of life. And that's what I wanted to talk to you about now, of course, which is the difference between trains and cars. Trains are super convenient, relaxing and scenic, and they bring you from centre to centre. So if you jump on in the middle of Zurich, you walk out of your hotel, you get on the tram, or you walk to the train station, you get out in Lucerne and you walk to your hotel. You don't have to worry about where you're going to park your car, because a lot of these hotels don't have car parks, especially in the centre of the city, unless they're really big hotels. It's an absolute pain to find a car park in Switzerland. It is not like it is back home. You cannot park on the streets in front of any building you feel like, especially in the cities. Maybe in the middle of the countryside, you'll find a few more free car parks, but it's always paid, it's always difficult, and it's always a challenge. And that's on top of the traffic jam. So I'm not a big fan of the car for travellers, because it's just really challenging. And if you don't know the country and you don't know the rules and you don't want to be stressed about it. But of course, if you're in a larger group, the price per person when you average it out can be cheaper, especially including gas and parking. But you need to pay for all of that stuff, of course. And you're going to need a train pass anyway, because to go up the mountains is expensive. And if you have a train pass, or a travel pass, if you want to call it that, you get a discount. So if you don't have that travel pass as a car driver, you're going to be paying absolute premium to go up on any mountain trip. For example, the Jungfraujoch is about $250 to go up. With a pass, it can be as little as $130. So just by having the pass, you're saving tons of money. So by being a car driver, you're giving that up, or having to pay for that on top of going by car. But just keep in mind, trains in Switzerland are super convenient. Cars, yeah, it can be great if you're going to really out of the way places. But if you're going to all the run-of-the-mill Interlaken, Lucerne, Zermatt, you can't even drive into Zermatt. You have to park one town away and then catch the train anyway. So it's usually not worth hiring a car in 90% of cases. And that's something else I wanted to touch on here, the train passes. There's a whole range of train passes that you can get for your trip. The most common is the Swiss Travel Pass. It covers all ground transport and a couple of mountains and gives you discount on other mountains. The half fare card is a discount card. It doesn't give you anything in and of itself, but it gives you a big discount, 50% on most of your travel and mountains in most cases. There's the Eurail and Interrail pass, which is the same pass, but one is for non-Europeans and one is for Europeans. And that is great for just big train rides. And then there's a whole list of regional passes. There's a bunch for the Jungfrau Interlaken region. There's one for the Lucerne region. There's a couple in the Zermatt area. There's one for Lake Geneva. It's super complicated to work out which one you need. It takes a lot of work, a lot of calculations. You've got to calculate all the different mountains, all the different train trips. And it's certainly possible. You can do it on a spreadsheet. You can get all the information. But I do it for my clients because it is insanely complex and mind-bending, even for me sometimes. So that more or less sums it up. That's our trip to Switzerland. If you need any help, then remember I can help you with a whole bunch of travel guides on my website. and that's switzerlanding.com/guides if you want to have a look at that. And you can have a look at whether you're interested in my video consults or itinerary planning. I help people figure out issues with the planning, what to do where, how to get different places, where to stay, and where's the best areas to go and to visit and to do activities, what kind of activities you could do, how much you can fit in one day, because I find my clients are always coming to me because Switzerland is so full of options and so full of just tons of things to see and do, and the trains on top of all of that just get super overwhelming. So hopefully this presentation has helped you come to terms with all of that at least a little bit, and if not, feel free to get in touch. My email is hello@switzerlanding.com, and yeah, I'm open for any questions or any help you need.